So, Thomas, this coming weekend, you're headlining C2C in London, Glasgow, and Dublin. The festival itself is celebrating its 10th anniversary. You're just coming off a massive run of shows in Canada. So, I imagine you and the band are sounding as tight as ever. Tell me, how buzzing are you to be hitting the stages over here again?
Dude, we're so pumped. I am glad that we got to do Canada over the last 3 weeks because those shows were our first shows since October. So I feel like we got to knock a bunch of the rust off, and now we are primed and ready to play over here. So we are extremely pumped to be here.
Class. Now, your current single, Angels Don't Always Have Wings. Tell me a bit about this song, how it came together, because I imagine, that one in particular must go down very well at the live shows.
Yeah, man, it's we started playing it really for the first time these last few weeks, and I was really shocked at the reaction of people already knowing it. I've kind of started to judge whether a song is a hit or not based off the amount of people singing it back to you when it's brand new and when people's cell phone lights immediately start coming out and start waving. So it kind of became that moment for us in Canada. And but yeah, man, the writing process of that song was interesting because I wrote that song with another artist named. Have you heard of Teddy Swims by chance?
I was going to ask you about him. I adore him.
Dude, he makes me want to quit music and do something entirely different. His voice is like Marvin Gaye and Chris Stapleton had a baby and then started an R&B band. And he's just insane. And so I was writing with him and a guy named Julian Bonetta. Mm. And we were writing for his record, and I'd had that title on my phone, maybe Angels Don't Always Have Wings. And I kind of brought this kind of super country idea in, thinking that I just selfishly wanted to hear Teddy sing something like this. And so we finished the song, and Teddy put his voice on the song, and we got the demo back, and I was like, dude, Teddy, if you don't cut this, you are an idiot. Like, please cut this song. This is going to be so awesome for you. And I guess the song never resonated with him. And so as I started living with his demo, I was like, dang, this would really work for my record. Very authentic to me and my wife's relationship. And so after much texting and calling Teddy, he was finally like, yeah, this is not going to make my record. You should definitely record it. And so we recorded it, and Teddy ended up singing backgrounds on this project. And from the get-go, this song has been my favorite on the record, my favorite one to sing, my favorite one to talk about. Just a lot of emotion in that track, and kind of a way to say I love you that I really haven't said before. And so it's been a cool journey with the song.
Last November, your collaboration with Riley Green, Half of Me, became your 20th career #1. I mean, that is just a remarkable statistic. I love the song. It was one of my favorites of last year. Is it true that you wrote it with Josh Thompson, Will Bundy, and your father, Rhett Akins, on a tour bus in about half an hour?
Yeah. Yeah, we were on tour, and my dad and Josh were out writing with me for that weekend. And I think we were in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we had just got done writing a song that we just wanted to finish because we're not quitters. But none of us really liked the song, and we hopped off the bus. And I looked at Josh and I said, "Man, I'm going to grab a bite to eat if you want to come." And he literally just said, "Well, half of me wants a cold beer, and so does the other half." And all of our songwriting antennas just went off when we got back up on the bus and wrote that song literally in 30 or 45 minutes. And
wow.
It screamed Riley to me. Me and Riley had just become good buddies, and I'd always talked about doing a song together. And I played this for him at duck camp at like 2:00 in the morning. And, the next thing you know, he drove down from Alabama to put his voice on the song, and, became the second single off this project and became my 20th #1. So very, very grateful to him for that, and grateful that the song existed in the first place. So
your collaboration with Ben Rector, What Makes a Man, I mean, that is a truly special song. Not the most obvious pairing. How did it happen?
I've just been a fan of Ben's for a long time. And I think our publishers got us together on a co-write one day. I was at the beach and he was at home, and we started Zoom writing a couple times. And we never wrote anything that either of us felt like was good for either of our records or a collaboration. And I remember Ben, before making this new project, he had sent me a song called What Makes a Man. And he said, "Man, I feel like this really could resonate with you." And it did. Like that song hit me straight to the core, and it was immediately something that felt authentic to me. And I've been a huge fan of Ben's for forever. And so, I sang that vocal in my basement and sent him the files, and they got it mixed and put it on, his deluxe part of his record. And yeah, like I said, man, just a big Ben Rector fan, like one of my favorite lyricists in town by far. And so to do that with him was a blast.
Collaborating with the likes of Ben, Katy Perry, you mentioned Teddy Swims. What I've always really admired about you is you are fearless in your risk taking and you're experimenting with different sounds. And, if you scan down your 20 number ones, there's so much versatility and sound going on, never mind when we get into the deeper album cuts. Where does that confidence, that risk taking come from? Or is it simply a case of when you have so much talent in your own, so much confidence in your own songwriting ability, does that then feed into, well, okay, it's a great song, so what we choose to do now with the production and arrangement, that's up to us?
Yeah, I mean, the confidence I have now started 8 years ago with a ton of fear. Like, 8 years ago, putting songs out like Make Me Wanna and Crash and Burn and T-Shirt and Look What God Gave Her, like all these songs that are straight up, I mean, you can't even call them pop country. Like, some of them are just straight up pop songs. Some of them are straight up funk. Some of them are like Bee Gees meets freaking Alan Jackson. Like,
yeah.
And I think a lot of that, like, I come from a pretty musical family. Like, a lot of people just think my dad was a musician, but like my great grandfather was a fantastic piano player that also sung opera. And my grandmother introduced me to 50s doo-wop music as a kid. And, driving to school with my dad, it would be Aretha Franklin one day and then Ricky Skaggs the next, and then DMX the next day. So I grew up listening to just all sorts of different music. And so when I started writing, like, I love writing really sad traditional country songs, but I also love to party. You know what I mean? I like some tempo. I like some weird sounds. I'll go to concerts or I'll listen to, whatever's hot right now. And I'll be like, dang, what if we took something like that and morphed it into something that could work for me? And normally that comes off as something really off kilter for our genre. And so, 8 years ago, everyone thought it was the craziest thing in the world. And then, it opened up a lane for me. And it also opened up a lane for a lot of other artists that decided, man, I could do something like that too, and now it's happening again with Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen and all these people really trying to shift stuff around. It's making lanes for other artists to take those paths as well, and hopefully do it in their own authentic version. So it was very fearful in the beginning, and now it's turned into a lot of confidence of like, man, this isn't really traditional country, but I love it. My wife loves it. My kids can't stop listening to it. There's got to be something special about it. Let's put it on the record. So
John Mayer's got to be on your list of, collaborations to lock down, right?
100%, man.
Yeah, I can hear that in your music.
And I love John. I've seen John play a couple times, and I mean, some of those first albums like Continuum, it would be one of my like deserted island picks. Sure. If like put me somewhere and said you only get one album for forever, Continuum might be in my top 5 of what those would be. But from a songwriting perspective to a performance perspective, from a guitar playing perspective, like the dude is just the full package. And there's definitely songs of his that I've been like, man, what if we tried something like that? So.
Now, country music very obviously is rooted in its storytelling. And recently you were honored with the CMA Triple Play Award. And things like that must be very special along the way, where the spotlight is completely on your talent as a songwriter. But on top of that, to be honored this year alongside your father, I mean, just great memories, right?
It's incredible. Me and Dad were doing a couple of interviews before that show, and I don't think that it's ever happened before. I don't think there has been a father and son to receive that award together. Much less, I think this is like the 3rd time in a row that we've gotten to do this together, where we both wrote, 3 hits in a 12-month span. And even though some of those were the same song, it's just miraculous to me that, I mean, in the beginning it makes sense, right? Oh, my dad's a songwriter. Like, let's write because you are an incredible songwriter. But to be doing it 10 years later and still having success with that, that it's just way more than just a father-son dynamic. Like, it's just, we both just click. Like, our minds work very similarly. I grew up listening to the music that he grew up listening to. So he understands me, I understand him. And it's just a really good, songwriting dynamic. And on top of that, he's got great perspective into my life because he's known me since the day that I was born. So,
I mean, growing up with him and the success he's achieved, where do you think then your work ethic comes from? Because between your career and the kids, I mean, you must never sleep. There must be more than one of you.
If I could clone myself, I would, I promise you. But yeah, man, it's just been taking it year by year and finding a new balance every year. There were years of my life where I said yes to everything. And now I'm learning how to say no to certain things, not because I don't want to, but most of the time my kids do take priority over certain things, and my wife does as well. And so I think it's just every year finding that new balance and figuring out like, okay, this year, 2023, it is grind time. It is, this is a working year. You know what I mean? And like next year, you know, doing less shows and spending way more time with the kids, coaching basketball teams, coaching football teams, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just learning the balance. But I definitely get that work ethic from my dad. I mean, my dad has never canceled a co-write in the history of his time here. He never has canceled on the new artists. He's never canceled on the big artists. His mentality is like, if I don't show up, that's a song that could have been a hit. And I think that's where I get a lot of, you know, my work ethic from, is just watching my dad do it so well for so long. As
you're talking, I did an interview not that long ago with Sycamore, and obviously I'm aware of your connection with that artist. But I want to ask you, you know, one of the big hits you were involved in the writing of in recent times, She Had Me at Heads Carolina, massive for Cole Swindell. It's great to see you've thrown it into your own live set as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a unique, genius idea. Whose was it to lean into that original Joe D. Messina classic?
You know, it was actually, I used to be a Sony writer, like for publishing. And the guy that runs that place, his name is Rusty Gaston. And he texted Cole first and was like, hey man, I think you should redo a 90s country song. And Cole was like, well, what about Heads Carolina? And Rusty said, absolutely. And then Rusty called me and had me start thinking about that idea. And I called Cole. I had one line. I said, you know, maybe she'd fall for a boy from South Georgia. She had me at Heads Carolina, Tails California. And just that small little flip made us think, oh, maybe there is a way to completely refigure this song using the exact same melodies. And so I think the reason that song was so big is because it was giant in the 90s. And when you hear it now, even the guitar lick is the same. So it's familiar, but it's brand new content. And even when we left that room, I was just like, I don't know if this song is a hit or not, but Cole was like, this song is a smash. And the day that it came out, every time I looked at Instagram or TikTok, it was all over the place. And I think that's kind of how you know when something has gone viral and something is going to hit. And then it spent, 6 weeks at number one or whatever it did. And so just really happy for Cole and really honored to be a part of that whole song.
Last year, you put out a 4-track Christmas EP. Is that something you see yourself, leaning into again in the future?
Maybe. I mean, this past year, recording those 4 classic Christmas songs. I mean, November 1st, me and Lauren are immediately listening to every Sinatra Christmas, Bing Crosby, all that kind of stuff. And I'm obsessed with like classic Christmas music. And so getting in the studio and challenging me to be able to sing those songs like they did and be able to record them with, big string sections and big horn sections was really, really fun. And I mean, I love Christmas is my favorite holiday, and I could definitely see us doing some more stuff like that over the coming years.
And finally, Thomas, are we likely to see Country Again Side B this year?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Great.
Yeah. It's in the works, man. That would be, if I had a dollar for every time I answered, when is side B coming around, I'd be a rich man. But yeah, dude, I think, long story short, I think if we had put side B out when it was supposed to come out, we wouldn't have had half the songs that we have now. And I think the timing is going to be perfect on side B. And I think people are going to really, really, really enjoy it. So
again, Thomas, thank you for your time. Good luck this weekend. You're going to smash it. And I mean, personally, can't wait to see you in Dublin. I'm going to be freaking out. It's going to be great.